to the beginning of a conflict, which would be when you are about to be negatively affected or already are negatively affected by somebody blaming you. There's basically 4 ways that you can react schematically. Of course, there's plenty of other ways, but there's main 4 categories of reaction. The first one is you blame back. So the client is upset with you, and then you're upset with them, and then you blame them from not having given you the right brief, and so it goes on to a dysfunctional conflict. So the negative is what we call dysfunctional conflicts, which destroys trust. So those are the ones that we think of as conflicts. Most of the time in the Nordic countries, when we say conflicts, we're thinking of dysfunctional conflicts. So blame back, obviously that's not going to help anybody, and it's going to waste time. The second posture you can take when there's blame is to blame yourself. Oh, I wasn't good enough. I didn't have the time. Oh, I don't have the right team. I don't have the right resources. So blame yourself. That's the second posture. That's also very dysfunctional. Not quite as bad as blaming back, but it's definitely not going to help blaming yourself. Because what it does is that it just creates a bit more of that, but inside your head. That goes to the human to self conflicts inside your head. Third posture is that when somebody blames, you hear your needs. So hear my needs, I should write in first person. So when you're hearing blame and you go, oh, actually I needed time. Yeah, I needed a better brief, I needed a better scope. So suddenly you hear your needs when the person blames you. That's already a lot better. But obviously the Jedi level is when they blame you, you hear their needs. That's really hard to do.
Hear the pain, not the blame.
That's it. Hear the pain, not the blame. And the thing about this is that it's really difficult to do automatically. Your autopilot will never take you there. Your autopilot most likely will take you down here. So the job to do in a conflict is to actually remember that your autopilot is going to go into defense and blaming back, but actually take a step back and think about it, and you'll notice that there's always an unfulfilled need behind a conflict. And when you're able to go to that posture, you basically have the beginning of a functional trust building conflict, which is extremely positive for many reasons. So there was a couple of questions. Yes?
Could you give examples of these top 2 ones?
With a client case?
Esther, let's use the typo that we made in as the example. So I'm going to blame you, Esther. The coordination, this was terrible. Like really, we messed up the title of the groups. It's just unprofessional. Like this really. Yeah. How could you do this?
So if I was not blaming back and going, oh, but you did it wrong, it was your fault, I would say, so you probably have a need. I'm thinking, what is his need? His need is probably to be well prepared and feel relaxed about the whole workshop going well, and therefore his need was to be reassured. So if I talk about reassurance, then I'm actually tackling the functional conflict. But if I'm talking about the fact that whose responsibility it was and blaming back, then we go into the dysfunctional conflict.
Okay, but where is the hearing my needs there? Like I cannot imagine.
So we would probably need a bit of back and forth. So realistically, I would say, so okay, well this is just really unprofessional. How could this happen? And you would probably ask me some kind of question like,
well, what was your need? That would be you. But if I'm saying my need, that's in my head. Remember that the word here is really going on inside your head.
Yes.
So this is not the reaction yet. This is not what you say. This is what you in your head are doing.
Also what you say, it might be that, okay, well, I would have needed to have the computer, if he blames you, I would have needed to have the computer in the morning so that, or I would have needed to get to the shower before you, so I would have time to look at the slides one more time before the workshop.
So it's basically the difference between my needs and their needs. So the reason why this is important is that if you think back to the green, blue, red, this is the blue needs, my needs that belong to me, and this is the green needs that belong to the other person who's blaming me. And that's where the shift happens, is that you start to take away the shift from yourself and start to look at the other person as also having some needs that need to be fulfilled.
but typically to be able to hear, in this case, like my need, Esther would probably have to already feel safe enough to be able to deal with being challenged without getting triggered to the point that it's impossible not to defend himself and attack back. That's also, it's the self-awareness level. It's the, okay, I can sense that the person is attacking me, but I'm willing to put that aside and then hear their needs instead.
I saw your hand go up a second. I'm going to go to the end of this round so that we can open up at the end. What we have is that you have dysfunctional, which are really hindering group performance. Those are the conflicts that we are afraid of. Those are the conflicts that in Finland people say, we don't want conflicts. It's because it focuses on taking things personally, it feeds the ego in a negative way, and it is focused on your personality. So then it creates a defense mechanism. Naturally, people don't want to be in those kind of conflicts because it creates people walking away. It really is destructive and toxic. On the other hand, when you have functional conflicts, think of a positive team building exercise where you get a bit of a challenge, like escape rooms are a great example of functional conflicts. You might not call them a conflict, you might just call them having fun or being creative, solving challenges, but it is a functional conflict. And those are going to help. The main difference is there you focus on people, there you focus on process and group and task. So when you're in a project with a client and who's in conflict with you, the key is to not start blaming people, but it's to start listening to their process needs about doing the job. And that will unlock the conflict. That's basically the theory around conflicts in a nutshell.